Dimir, Boros, Izzet, Golgari, and Selesnya are all getting their own pre-release packs in this pre-release. Now, this is a really important thing to note, and when you're done watching this video and you've got an idea of what you want to do, you should call your local game store and say, I want to play Izzet, I want to play Dimir, write me down, because they are only going to have, most stores are only going to have 20 of each guild, and if they run out, too bad, you'll just have to play another guild, so keep that in mind for after this video. So what does that mean in practice? Well, you'll get one pack that will only have cards for the guild that you want. So let's say you're playing Dimir. You'll get one pack, 15 cards. You'll get one guild gate, that's a Dimir guild gate, and then you'll get 14 other cards that are all blue or black or both. Now, that is very different from opening a regular pack. Let's say that you open a regular pack and you're wanting to play Dimir. Well, if you just do the basic math, no crazy probabilities, not actually looking at the real set, just simple thought experiment. Let's say that you're looking for blue or black cards. Well, if there's 5 colors of Magic, then on average, you'll get 6 cards in each booster that are blue or black. So this one seeded booster of your guild is worth more than 2 boosters worth towards getting you towards your deck. I mean, 15 cards, you're only playing maybe 23 cards in your deck that are non-lands. So if you're 15 cards on your way there, 14 because one of them is going to be a guild gate, man, that is like, more than half of a deck in one pack. So when you pick these, you should have a great chance of being able to play whatever it is that you want to play, and that's pretty cool. Next up, let's talk about each guild. So first we're going to start with Dimir. Now, the first thing that I want to say about Dimir is that when I did the set review, I said that every single Dimir common and uncommon for multicolored was a good card that I was excited to play. Every single one of them, all 10 of them. Now that to me is a huge draw towards playing Dimir. If I'm going to get a pack that just has Dimir stuff, and I know that 100% of the multicolored cards are going to be good, that's nice. But you have to ask yourself, what about Dimir as a strategy? So Dimir is really doing one thing, and that's surveilling, okay? Now, what Surveil is it's like Scry, except instead of putting it on the bottom of your deck, you put it in your graveyard. Now, for newer players, that sounds worse, but in reality, you'll just have to trust me, putting it in your graveyard is better. Now, one of the big reasons for this is that there are graveyard synergies in this set. Not necessarily with Dimir, but in this set. We'll get to that later. So that's really cool. Now, the other thing is that Surveil is something that I want to be doing. Like, just putting Surveil on cards that are already decent just makes me very excited to play them. Manipulating the top of your deck is not the same as drawing cards, but it does stop you from drawing cards that you don't want to draw, if you get what I'm saying. So, even though it's not giving you card advantage right away, it builds up over time. So, if you have a bunch of Surveil cards and you don't have anything that costs more than 5 mana, you can just always be throwing those lands on the bottom, in your graveyard, and you'll just never draw them. That's a fantastic ability to have. So there's other cards like Dimir Spybug, where they're pretty good, but they reward you for surveilling, which is something that you already want to do in the first place. So this is a very high synergy deck that can really, I expect it to be very good at grinding your opponent out and really just leaving them in the dust. It also has black, which is nice because black has a ton of kill spells in this set, 4 that I'm very excited to play. So Dimir, to me, first glance, seems like the strongest of all guilds. Next up is Golgari, and their ability is called Undergrowth. Now, Undergrowth actually is unlike Surveil. With Surveil, you know exactly what it does. With Undergrowth, you have to read what it does. So all of it is counting your creatures in your graveyards, but Is it going to give you an amount of life equal to that amount of creatures? Is it going to give you +1/+1 counters equal to that number of creatures? You really don't know. But what I have to say about this mechanic is it has high potential, and it's put on all cards that are kinda bad. Okay, let's look at some examples. So we've got Golgari Raiders here. He's a 0/0. So really, realistically, I want him to be a 4/4 for 4 at least, you know? And he's got haste. So by the time you have 4 creature cards in the graveyard, there's been a lot of stuff going on in your game, probably. And a 4/4 for 4 with haste is probably not going to break that board up anyway. So the card's not that exciting. Similarly, Crawl Foragers, you're getting a 4/4 for 5, and then at that point, what do you get there? You get a little bit of life. Maybe you get 4 life if it's like some pretty mid game starting to get to late game, but maybe it'll just be 1 or 2 life. Moodmark Painter lives in this bizarro world where we are like green-black aggro, and we're trying to get creatures in there, and then you're still paying 4 mana for a 2/3 in the end. So that attack that you're getting better be good, but all your creatures are too small or coming in too late to really have pressured them that much. So I mean, what is up here? For Rhizome Lurcher, he's just the most egregious example. I mean, let's say you've had 1 creature die before you play him. If you're lucky, then he'll be a 3/3 for 4. Very underwhelming. Now, as the game goes on, let's say the game just keeps going on and going on and going on, these cards are going to be great because they're going to come down and their effects are going to be, pow, amazing. But how do you get to that super late game where these cards are amazing if all you've been doing is playing highly costed cards with small effects up to that point? How do you not just get run over? So, Golgari, I have some extreme reservations about running this straight up. So just for a little contrast to see why this is so bad, let's compare it to Surveil. For Surveil, I'm getting an advantage at that time, and then I've got other cards that like Surveil and get better and better and better. Whereas here, I have to put creatures in the graveyard, which is just a chore. It's not inherently rewarding like Surveil is, and then I get my overcosted creatures to become better and better in the late game. So it's just like really awkward, and I don't think is going to come together that well. Now, Selesnya is a strange one. If you haven't seen Convoke before, it's a very powerful mechanic. So the way that it works is you play cards like Sworn Champions, you get out a bunch of little dudes, okay? And little dudes are good. They can win a game on their own, but what you're going to do is you're going to tap those little dudes, and they will pay for the casting costs of big dudes, okay? So the idea is play your big dudes using your little dudes, smash those big dudes into their face. Many of them are very hard to deal with. Now, if they do manage to deal with what you've done in making these big dudes, well, you still have your little dudes, right? And they'll have used removal spells, they'll chump block, all sorts of stuff, trying to deal with the big guys. Now, once they're kind of exhausted with that effort, then those little guys can kind of swarm and finish the game. So it's really got an unusual game plan, but in past sets has always turned out to be very strong, and I don't see any reason why it would be different here. These cards are very exciting to play. Okay, now let's talk about Boros. Now, Boros is an interesting case because in Sealed in general, aggro tends to be bad. It tends to be bad because you can't get enough cards that are applying enough pressure to kill your opponent before they stabilize playing bigger creatures. So that's why traditionally aggro has been so bad in Sealed. However, because of this Sealed pack, where you get one pack with 15 cards that Boros would like to play, that very much changes the equation, because now you're much more likely to get enough cards to get your attack on in Boros. Now, what I want to show you here quick is my one concern with Boros, which will change the way that you deck build. So if you look at these 6 cards, you'll realize that none of them have a toughness over 3. So that makes them very easy to block. And that's a concern, because if your card just attacks in, gets blocked, and then puts a 1/1 counter on the other thing, that is not that impressive of a showing. So what this means, what you want to do is you want to put combat tricks in this deck, so that even when you get blocked, you'll use something like Sure Strike, and that'll cause you to win the fight. And then your creature will get to attack the next turn and get another mentor trigger, and then you're doing it. So make sure that you've got those pump spells for combat, because these are very easy to block otherwise. The next deck building concern for Boros is that you have early creatures that allow you to put +1/+1 counters on them. So things like Hasda Marshal, Healer's Hawk, and Hunted Witness. These make it so that whenever you've got a mentor creature, as soon as it comes out, you've got something to put those counters on. Healer's Hawk strikes me as particularly good because it does have flying, so that mentorship will greatly increase your reach as you try to take them out. Now, Boros is also a little bit tricky because of this mentoring ability and how it's going to put multiple triggers on the stack at once. So let's say you're attacking with a Barging Sergeant, a Blade Instructor, and a Fearless Halberdier, which I'm probably saying wrong. What you would want, optimally, is for the Barging Sergeant first to put a counter on the Blade Instructor, and then for the Blade Instructor to put a counter on the Fearless Halberdier afterwards, right? Because after it gets the counter from the Barging Sergeant, then it will have more power than the Fearless Halberdier, meaning that it's allowed to mentor it. To get this puzzle right, remember that the trigger that you put on the stack first is going to resolve last. So you put the Blade Instructor's trigger on the stack first, then the Barging Sergeant on top of that, and then it'll go to resolve the triggers. It'll start with Barging Sergeant, and then Blade Instructor, allowing you to put that second +1/+1 counter on Fearless Halberdier, which I should have never used for this example because it's so annoying to say. Overall, I expect Boros to have a little bit of a bipolar personality problem. When it's good, it's going to feel just unreasonable and unfair and end the game so quickly. And then when you've got a kind of mediocre Boros deck, you're just gonna get stomped, because you're just gonna have the problem where you can't get enough aggro in to actually finish off your opponent before they stabilize. So it's really going to be feast or famine, and if that's the kind of coin flippy risk take type thing you want to do, and if you win the coin flip you're just destroying people, then yeah, this is probably for you. Our last guild today is Izzet. Now, Izzet is interesting. It doesn't have a name for its ability like Surveil or Undergrowth or Mentor. What it does is it just rewards you for playing instants and sorceries, and it rewards you in different ways on different cards. Now, Izzet is extremely complex. The thing that's difficult about it is that you need creatures to kill your opponents, but all your creatures require spells. So you have a great desire for spells, but you have a need for creatures. This makes Izzet very difficult to kind of forecast how good it's going to be. Many of the cards, such as Crackling Drake, are fantastic, right? Very happy to see them in a deck. But the kind of pulling in both directions there can make it difficult. Now, I think it might be good, but I just cannot say, without ever having played any of this, how good it's going to be exactly. So what I would say is, in true Izzet fashion, if you want to be the mad experimenter, Izzet is exactly for you, because I cannot tell you where that leads. Now let me tell you a secret. Shh. Don't let wizards hear me say this. But you do not actually have to play any of these guilds. Now, with the guild gates, you're going to get 1 guild gate in every single pack. So you have 6 guild gates by the end. Now, including the 1 locket you'll get from your seeded pack, and maybe 1 other locket, I mean, you can pretty easily splash about some other colors. So I would expect to see 3 color decks pretty often, maybe even 4. Four, you better know what you're doing, but 3, pretty good. So let me give you an example of a 3 color deck. You've got your Dimir deck, right? You're sifting through your cards, you're making sure everything you draw is great. And then how do you finish the game? Okay. Well, number 1, Dimir doesn't need help finishing the game, but you could be splashing for green to get those amazing black-green Golgari cards for the late game. And when you're just using those for late game, boom, you're using them at their most powerful. So you can do 3 color combinations. Another one that you might do is whatever color you are, you might splash black and then get access to any removal spells that you have in black. There's a lot of great ones. And so for this reason, you might find yourself playing 3 colors. Now, the guild that can play 3 colors the easiest is Dimir. Dimir seems to have all the advantages. And the reason why is when you're surveilling, you can take cards that you can't cast, put them in your graveyard, or you can be surveilling to try to dig towards any colors that you're missing. So surveil will help you with color splashes, strangely. Now, the deck that's going to want to splash a 3rd color the least is Boros. The reason why is when you're doing these aggro decks and you just want to do 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, that kind of thing, stumbling on the wrong color of mana is a huge, huge liability. And so you will be disincentivized from splashing in that case. Now, I expect most decks to actually be splashing a 3rd color. If it's for a mythic, awesome. If it's for some removal you need, awesome. If it's for some big creature to finish off the game, awesome. And with those 6 dual lands, 6 guild gates, you will definitely get there. Now, some of you may be saying, Luke, just tell me what to pick. So I'm going to do that. Let's talk about the guilds. Dimir, it's the best, in my opinion, if you are making correct decisions consistently, and it's best at splashing other colors. So if you've put in the hours, you know the game really well, you know your triggers, all that kind of jazz, then Dimir might be where you want to be. Selesnya is the best all-rounder. It's inherently powerful, and I would suggest it to anyone. For Boros, if Hulk needs to smash, pick Boros. Hope it comes together. If it comes together, it will be powerful, but you do run a little risk there. Golgari, I don't suggest to anyone, actually, though its cards can make epic off-color splashes. Izzet is for mad lads only. Results are unknown. If you enjoyed the video today, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. I'll be doing some crazy drafts as soon as this comes out on MTGO, so you can look forward to that. Have a great time at your pre-release no matter what happens, and as always, I'll see you next video.